The question was posed, where does life resonate most profoundly in faith? And I think the answer to that emphatically is the Christian religion. I have written several books that incorporate numerous passages in the Bible, and have written a devotional and a Bible study simply about the Bible's take, if you will, focusing a lens sharply on what it says about the dignity, the value, the sanctity, and preciousness of human life, and therefore what it challenges and confronts abortion as being, which is the end of life for a child in utero. And there is no faith on earth that articulates so beautifully the life paradigm and the value of all life and the eternality of life, but the Christian faith. And for me, it is my deepest sincere conviction that the Christian faith is the only authentic faith on earth. I believe that Jesus is the Son of the living God. And I believe he died for the sins of all the world. And I believe he is coming again to judge and to establish a new heaven and earth and a perfect reality one day. And so he's given us this time, this blessed gift of life, to discover who he is and then hopefully journey in that life on to eternity. John 10:10 says that he came to give us life and life abundant. He gave us life when he created us in our mother's womb, and he is sustaining our life every day by the word of his power, and he's wanting to ultimately give us all life and all fullness in a relationship with him by us acknowledging him, confessing him, and walking with him into that eternity. I think this is who God really is. I think this is the truth. But a next segment of that is, well, what about all the other faiths? And I would just say this. A lot of the faiths, whether it's Islam, whether it's Judaism, whether it's Baha'i, whether it's Confucianism, whether it's Buddhism, an amazing number of tribal religions in Africa, they all have elements of truth. They all have interesting observances of life within them. And I think that because God is really the author of all life, he is constantly wooing and calling us from everywhere. And so I think you can find God in any place, but there's also a mixture and a blend of the things that are not of God in these other faiths. And so you can't find who God truly is there, but you can begin to sense him and find him, just as you would in creation. It says in the scriptures that all creation testifies to the truth and the presence of God. And as you're staring at the beauty of creation and the marvel of the heavens, you're drawn to God, and he will eventually bring you home. But I would just say that no matter what faith you're a part of, if I examine most faiths, they all have a fair reverence for life. It is one of the truths that they seem to understand. I think God has sown in the human heart and in the conscience an understanding of light and dark, right and wrong, truth and falsehood. And life is evident to everyone. It is a self-evident truth that we all understand and we all know. Sometimes we choose to dismiss it. Sometimes we ignore it or we reject it. But in our soul, we understand it. We know that life is precious. And the only, I guess you could say, religious sort of expressions or faiths that seem to go against life are directly works of what the Bible would articulate as Satan. They are the very embodiment and oppositional spirit to life, which is death. Scripture articulates that Satan was a murderer from the beginning, and that when he lies, he speaks his native language. Satan is the author of death. So if you find yourself in any faith that's calling for sacrifice, that's calling for death, that's calling for harm, the diminishment of others, their destruction, their annihilation, you are not listening to the voice of God. You are listening to the voice of the apostate angel who rebelled against God in the very beginning. And he has dominion over the world, the scriptures teach, and he has deceived. It says at some place in scripture that he has deceived the whole world. So he is a often misunderstood, often not even thought about element, but he is a real foe and a dangerous entity. And those things that lead toward death are coming from his heart. And the things that lead toward life are coming from God's. But I have to say, I am convinced that Jesus Christ is indeed who he said he was. And I would encourage you, if you're going to check out any faith, to check out the Christian faith. And if you're in the Christian faith, continue to abide in developing and in growing and in embracing that relationship, because it is the greatest relationship that God has offered to man. And so that's what I would say about life and death and the various faiths and where people encounter it.